Welcome to the deep dive.
Haha.
We're here to give you that shortcut, to being really well informed. If you're a founder, maybe running a side hustle, or even just thinking about launching something, you're probably looking for, well, two things. Accelerate the success and skip those common mistakes that sink most ventures. We're not about cliches today. We're diving deep into the actual playbook for sustained entrepreneurial growth.
Yeah, and for this deep dive, we've pulled together some really powerful sources centered around this framework called 10 Essential Business Lessons for Success. What's great about this collection, I think, is how it's put together. It's not just advice pulled out of thin air. It actually backs up its claims with, a mix of real stories from founders and hard data. Makes it relatable, but also really grounded.
That blend sounds perfect. Data and story. That's exactly what someone ambitious needs. So our mission today is pretty focused. Boil down the key strategies, the essential mindsets, and that long-term view you need for real solid growth. This isn't about getting rich quick. It's about building something that actually lasts and avoiding those known pitfalls. So where do we start? What does the playbook say we need to do right now?
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the essential toolkit.
Right. So the first lesson, and it might seem a bit counterintuitive, is ditching that whole lone geniuses idea. You mentioned founders feeling pressure to invent everything new, but the data, it clearly shows failure often comes from making mistakes that are, well, already documented.
Okay, so learn from others' experiences. Makes sense. But wait, if I'm trying to be innovative, aren't I risking just being average if I only look at what's known? Don't breakthrough ideas sometimes mean ignoring the beaten path? That's a fair challenge. And the source material actually tackles that head on. It's not about killing innovation. It's about being smart with your resources, like really smart. There's this specific metric they warn about. Successful early stage startups. On average, they spend less than 15% of their initial cash on solving problems that aren't core to their business, things that already have solutions out there. If you burn through your runway debating or building something someone else figured out years ago, well, you might not even get to the innovative part. The idea is to learn smart, so you can pour, say, 85% of your effort into what makes you unique.
Okay. So don't waste precious capital reinventing the wheel for the support structure.
Yeah.
Got it. And being that efficient probably needs outside help, which sounds like it leads to the second piece in the toolkit community. We hear networking all the time, usually thinking sales leads, but the sources seem to define community differently here.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's much deeper than just leads. We're talking about building a real support network, one that gives you emotional resilience, sure, but also, and this is critical, acts as a kind of accountability system, financially and strategically. The material really stresses this point. It's not optional for surviving long term. This network isn't just for high fives, it's for getting that crucial outside perspective.
So when a founder inevitably hits a wall, is this network supposed to be like a shoulder to cry on, or is it more about tough love, hard financial, and strategic advice?
It really needs to be both, but maybe weighted a bit towards the tough love side. The sources suggest finding two kinds of people for your network. You need people who can share data-backed stories, like, hey, I made this exact mistake back in 17, here's the metric you missed. And you also need people who can offer objective emotional support when the numbers look grim. The successful founders they talked to didn't just have cheerleaders, they had experienced mentors willing to say, look, your burn rate is just not sustainable based on their own experience, their own data.
Right? Having that critical outside eye saves you from kidding yourself, which must be a fast track to stalling out. Okay, but if I had to pick the biggest mental block for entrepreneurs, it's probably this third point in the toolkit, maybe the biggest aha moment for many. Prioritize execution over perfection.
Oh, definitely. That endless polishing, the obsession with the perfect launch, it's lethal. It reminds me of that classic case study the sources mention, the founder who held up their launch for 3 months arguing over the exact blue for the sign up button. That kind of thing is just fatal.
Yeah, the sources are really direct about this. If the choice is wait 6 months for 100% perfect or launch at 80% today, you launch today, what's the real cost of waiting, according to them?
It's not just lost time, it's lost data. Launching at 80% is the only way you start getting the feedback you absolutely need to eventually reach 100% or whatever perfect actually is. You can build the most amazing thing in secret, but if it hits the market and doesn't solve the real problem users have, well, you've wasted everything. You have to fail fast, or maybe execute fast to learn fast.
Execute fast to learn fast. I like that. And embracing that kind of execution, even when it feels unfinished or draining, that seems to lead right into the next big area,
Yeah.
the mindset shift. You can have the tools, but keeping up that 80% execution pace for the long haul, that needs a fundamental change in how we even think about success itself, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And what's fascinating here is how the source material just flat out challenges that myth of effortless achievement. So many people see these huge success stories and think there was some magic aha moment. But according to this framework, success is almost purely a result of consistent, documented effort. It's the day in, day out grind measured against your process goals, not some sudden mythical breakthrough.
Right. It's about committing to the process, not just dreaming of the outcome. And if you commit to that consistent effort, well, failure is going to happen. It's inevitable. This is where that reframing you mentioned is so important. The sources don't just pat you on the back and say failure is okay. They give it a specific job.
Ah.
Failure is data,
Yep.
a necessary data point.
Exactly. It goes beyond just being resilient. It becomes part of a scientific method almost. The source material lays out a system. Successful founders don't just get over failure, they actually systematize the feedback loop. They recommend setting aside, say, a dedicated 30 minutes every week just for failure analysis. You take the mistake, the setback, which feels emotional, and you turn it into something measurable that tells you how to pivot next.
Huh. So an entrepreneur doing this isn't just toughing it out emotionally. They're being methodical, like a scientist, gathering data needed to adjust and improve the whole process.
Precisely. And if you commit to lifelong learning, which the material flags as absolutely mandatory for sustained growth, then a mistake isn't a judgment on you anymore. It's just evidence showing what not to pour resources into next time. It's this dedication to the process, not just chasing the outcome, that builds that long-term edge. If you're not learning faster than the market's changing, you're basically falling behind, you're stagnating.
And stagnation is the enemy of sustained growth. Okay, so this mindset, this way of thinking, is what fuels founders to actually play what we're calling the long game.
That's the perfect way to put it, because the long game needs a huge mental investment. This is where we have to really tackle that incredibly damaging myth in business, the overnight success story.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. The sources go right after this idea of mythical overnight achievements. That whole narrative, the idea you can just skip the tough years, it's apparently super destructive. But why? Why is chasing quick wins so dangerous based on the data?
Because it fundamentally messes up your expectations about effort versus results. The sources just keep hammering this point. Sustained growth takes patience, real dedication, because the initial effort, it often brings pretty low, sometimes frustrating returns. If a founder expects big success in a year, but it really takes 3, they might quit at month 24. Right when all that consistent effort they put in during that mindset phase was actually about to start compounding. Without patience, all that earlier effort just goes down the drain.
Wow. So consistent effort is the engine, but patience is like the crucial time filter. Okay. But staying motivated through those long, maybe low-return years, that must take incredible mental fuel. What keeps founders going when the numbers maybe don't look great yet?
Yeah, that really comes down to a core mindset, belief and persistence. And this is deeper than just, being optimistic. This belief, it's the engine driving that consistent effort over the long haul. When you hit a serious obstacle, funding falls through, a product recall, a recession hits, it's your persistence, fueled by that core belief in your mission, that stops you from just throwing in the towel.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, that level of persistence needs something more than just personal ambition, right? It can't just be about wanting to be successful.
Exactly right. And this leads us to the ultimate synthesis, really, from the source material. Long-term viability, we're talking highest level strategic thinking here. It requires dedicating yourself to serving a mission that goes beyond just chasing profit.
That feels like a critical distinction. Profit keeps the lights on. Obviously, it's necessary for survival. But a deeply felt mission, that's necessary for the founder's persistence, for their ability to stick it out. If the only goal is making money, it's probably incredibly easy to get discouraged when the money takes longer than expected to show up.
But if the goal is bigger, like solving a real problem people have, or building something valuable for a community, or serving a mission that resonates beyond the balance sheet, that mission itself becomes the reason to stay in the fight, to absorb those inevitable punches. The data backs this up too. Companies that are really rooted in a sense of purpose, they tend to handle tough economic times much better than those just focused on the next quarter's profits. They usually have a stronger internal culture, and that culture supports the kind of consistent effort needed for the long game.
Okay, Let's bring this all together for you, the listener. Entrepreneurial success, according to these sources, it's really not about some secret formula or getting lucky overnight. It's about a very intentional, dedicated process, backed by learning from mistakes others have already documented, prioritizing actually doing things to get data, embracing failure as feedback you can systematize, and crucially, having a clear purpose, a mission that serves others, beyond just the bottom line.
So thinking back to those practical strategies we talked about right at the start, especially that idea of prioritizing execution over perfection, maybe this raises an important question for you right now. What's the biggest common mistake you could stop making today based on that principle? Are you maybe holding back on launching something because of a tiny detail, that last 5% of polish that you could easily fix after you launch? The sources are basically yelling, stop waiting, start acting, get that vital 80% data flowing.
Exactly. Maybe here's one final provocative thought to take away, something to chew on until our next deep dive. If you had to nail down your business mission in just one sentence right now, how clearly does it actually go beyond chasing profit? If you can articulate that clear serving mission, you've just laid the foundation for playing the long game. And that clarity, that might just be the difference between a short-term project and building a real lasting legacy.